CNN that the decision was made to avoid a scenario in which one of the show's stable of 24 plus guests might make an inappropriate comment on live television that could be used to assail the program and network as a whole.
I think they should worry about the host of that program, too. I will never forget watching in real time a few months ago, Joe Scarborough come out and say that Donald Trump would execute people. Like, this was said, and it was so stunning. I wrote down the time. I put it in my notes. I sent it to our team. He's never said that. He's never done that. I don't blame Joe Scarborough, any host, any president, any political figure for what happened. I solely blame the shooter. But the rhetoric on both sides should come down. And I think what you are seeing from Team Trump is a hard pivot from fighter to healer. Politico Playbook said today there was this call that took place after the shooting with Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles, and they were very strategic, and they've called guests who are going to speak and said, don't bring up the shooting. They've strategically picked which guests are going to bring it up. I'm sure you'll hear about it from the president, but I think you are going to see former President Trump on Thursday night give one of the most unifying, beautiful speeches. And I think it's going to bring the country together. And I know he says maybe it's not possible. I think it is when you have a leader who takes that mantle and runs with it. And every indication from Nikki Haley coming and Ron DeSantis coming and the tweets that were sent out, he personally crafted the Truth Social about unity. Every indication points at a president who is going to go from fighter to healer.
In the wake of Donald Trump's assassination attempt, MSNBC made the decision to pull Morning Joe off the air yesterday to keep their TDS in check. On Saturday, July 13th, during a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, former President Donald Trump was targeted in an assassination attempt. This tragic event has sent shockwaves across the nation and has led to intense media coverage. In response to this, MSNBC decided not to air its popular morning show, Morning Joe, on Monday. Instead, they continued with rolling breaking news coverage. A spokesperson for NBC Universal News Group said, and I quote, given the gravity and complexity of this unfolding story, NBC News Now, and MSNBC have remained in rolling breaking news coverage since Saturday evening. They emphasize the need to maintain a unified news feed covering this developing situation. Let's be clear. The mainstream leftist media's relentless attacks on Trump are the reason why we're in this situation in the first place. They've painted Trump and his supporters as enemies of the state, and now we see the direct results of their rhetoric. For years, we've seen headline after headline, segment after segment, filled with vitriol and disdain for Trump and his supporters. The liberal media, including MSDNC, have not just reported on Trump, they've targeted him. Yet they've made it their mission to demonize him and anyone who dares to support him. And now, when the consequences of their actions become evident, they pull their most recognizable show off the air to avoid possible guests justifying the horrific attack. According to insiders, MSNBC executives made this decision to avoid any inappropriate comments from their guests. And another person familiar with the matter reportedly told CNN that the decision was made to avoid a scenario in which one of the show's stable of 24 plus guests might make an inappropriate comment on live TV that could be used to assail the program and network as a whole. Wow. So they're worried that a news program is unable to cover news. That's because they're not news programs, as Biden would whisper. They're propaganda arms for the Democrat Party. Pathetic, but not surprising. Also, it's a quite admission of complicit behavior, in my view. At the same time, what does that tell us? It tells us that someone at MSNBC knows their rhetoric has gone too far. They are fully aware that their guests, who have been giving a platform to spew hatred, might cross a line that would be indefensible, even by their standards. They pulled the show for fear that some jackwagon panelists would say something grotesquely inappropriate. I gotta admit, though, it was probably a wise move on their part. I'm still a little wary of this, though, and I think you guys should be as well. Are they that certain that Trump's going to win in November, that they're trying to play both sides and save face? Either way, we can't back down. We must turn up, vote early, Try to reason with family and friends that are still on the fence and get involved. Never underestimates the left's resolve. There's still a long way to go until November. But in the wake of the assassination attempt on Trump, we see the same pattern. Rather than addressing their role in creating a divisive and dangerous atmosphere, they've chose to sideline their programming. This is a blatant attempt to dodge responsibility, but none of us are being fooled. But I'll tell you this, the fact that Morning Joe was off air yesterday signals something significant, in my opinion. It signals that there is an existential crisis within MSNBC and the broader leftist media apparatus. Just think about it for a second. If the so-called adults in the room are finally getting involved, stepping back and saying that maybe talking in loose terms about existential threats to democracy and treating politics like entertainment is wrong, and if they're saying that the stakes are dangerously high right now and that they should get more serious about how they convey the news to their audience, that's how you know they're in panic mode and they are completely broken. I don't know about you guys, but this feels like the closest we'll get to an admission of past guilt and an acknowledgement that they can't control their own narrative. Trump has really broken them, despite their relentless attacks to take him down. And while MSNBC pulled Morning Joe off the air yesterday, they still had Joy Reid on that evening, another person at fault for fanning the flames of Trump derangement syndrome. Reid, in her usual style, downplayed the assassination attempt, suggesting that Trump isn't a victim despite being shot. You can't make this stuff up, man.
Universal kind of reaction that I'm getting, whether it's civilians or, professionals, is really a deep concern and lack of confidence in not us at this table or us at MSNBC, but us as the media writ large. And a fear that what's going to happen now is that the Republican Party will do what they do. They're in the middle of a campaign. The convention started today. But the media will acquiesce to trying to convince people that the things they've been experiencing for the last 5-6 years didn't happen. That the greatest purveyor and promoter of political violence, really, since anyone can remember, since George Wallace, I think, that we just haven't experienced that kind of open, sort of citing or sort of incitement of violence or sort of luxuriating in the idea of violence. It's just not something we're used to anymore in American politics. And then we had to get used to that being a thing. And people are concerned and expressing concern that we won't be the guardians of memory and that we will allow Donald Trump, as he is, bathed in the glory and grandeur of his party, to rewrite himself as both a hero and a victim, that people who are the most vulnerable to not just the things he's done, but the things he's promising to do, and that will then happen without a guardian saying, wait, stop. And then the media will acquiesce to this rewrite. And the people that I've been talking to don't accept the rewrite.
And it's not just Joy Reid. It's a large part of the media apparatus, especially CNN and MSNBC. Let's see what they said over the years.
He's talking about a bloodbath for America. It's laid out in the terms of it. And these idiots on Twitter, these idiots on cable news, these idiots on Sunday shows going, well, presidents, he was talking only about the auto industry, and this is one more. It's just bullshit. Let me say that at 6:15 a.m. It's just bullshit. He knew what he was doing. We're not stupid. Americans aren't stupid. He was talking about a bloodbath. Sometimes a bloodbath means a bloodbath. And when he finishes by saying, and that's just going to be the least of it, seriously, these people may be stupid. We're not.
So, yeah, you can't accuse Trump, accuse his supporters of wanting a bloodbath. It's truly astonishing how the left continuously accuses the right of inciting violence, yet the facts tell a different story. You don't see conservative rallies turning into chaotic protests. You don't see us looting stores or burning down buildings. From Antifa's riots to the devastation in the 2020 summer protests, quote unquote, the summer of love. It's clear which side embraces violence as a means to end. And to suggest that Trump's going to try to jail his opponent to execute them, whoever he's allowed, it's unhinged to say the least. I really have no words for Joe Scarborough. Back in 2023, this dude literally said, if elected, Trump will try to execute whoever he wants. And I wonder why Comcast was so worried about what this deranged lunatic might say, so much so that they pulled him off of air yesterday. Anyway, who's really trying to jail his political opponents? Because it sure isn't Trump doing that. It's no secret that since Biden took office, his DOJ has been on a witch hunt to bring Trump down by any means necessary. They've thrown every possible charge at this man, hoping something would stick. But what have we seen instead? Case after case is falling apart. Take, for instance, the classified documents case in Florida. This was supposed to be the smoking gun, the case that would finally take Trump down. Yet just yesterday, we saw a federal judge toss out key parts of the case due to blatant prosecutorial overreach and a lack of evidence. It's clear that this was more about scoring political points than seeking justice. Then there's the fiasco in New York, where the Manhattan district attorney tried to indict Trump over his business dealings. Despite the media frenzy and grandstanding, this case crumbled under the weight of its own unfounded accusations. The so-called evidence presented was weak at best, and it was very apparent from the start of this that this too was a desperate attempt to tarnish Trump's reputation. Meanwhile, Biden's own controversies and those of his family are still conveniently being ignored. This is the double standard, or this double standard is glaring. The DOJ under Biden is more focused on settling political scores than upholding the law. It's a disgrace and an affront to the principles of justice and fairness that this country was built on. But they didn't always have this severe case of Trump derangement syndrome. Take a look at Morning Joe before and after. This is ridiculous.
Joining us on the phone, the front runner, the Republican race for president, Donald Trump.
We've known you for a very long time. I've even told people on this show that I've called you up and I advised you early on, stop picking fights with people. You ignore all my advice and then you go up 30 points in the polls.
I will share the moment of bonding that occurred when Mr. Trump walked into the room and said, hey, Heilman, we should like each other. We're both German.
Okay.
One thing I have learned, if you're going to be a good governor or a good president, you have to have a short memory. Donald, if he's punches back, has a very short memory. He's always looking for friends. And that's the one thing that always shocks me in politics. People that, can forget what happened before and say, let's get together later.
Donald Trump, thank you very much.
Is there really
Foreign
one
languages.
person voting for
Not
that
just
guy?
foreign languages.
How stupid would you have to be?
Foreign.
He can't complete a sentence. He can't complete a thought. He talks about Crooked Joe.
Like, think about what he's going to say.
Does
Does
he
somebody
prepare?
give him a little
I
piece
don't
of
know.
paper or something? Because that's clear he doesn't. He doesn't even think.
Well, he looks so lost and confused. He jumbles his words. He tries to read a little bit.
He's trying to be nasty.
And then, trying to be nasty. But when he does that fifth grade or really 5-year-old taunt, Newscomb, is that his name, Newscomb? I mean, talk about losing about 18 miles off your.
My main takeaway is that the last 8 years have really taken their toll on poor Mika. But on a more serious note, do you see how disingenuous these people are? They had absolutely no problem. The media, Hollywood, the elites, they didn't have a problem with Trump until he actually won. Then they learned he can't be bought. And then they were told to hate Donald Trump. Do you see what's going on here? Trump broke them. He has been living rent-free in their brains for years. For years, outlets like MSNBC have been ground zero for some of the most vicious attacks on Trump, constantly comparing him to Hitler. Morning Joe has been a particularly egregious offender of that. Mika Brzezinski, Joe Scarborough, and their litany of lunatic guests have relentlessly painted Trump as the second coming of Hitler, stoking fear and hatred among their viewers. So yeah, I do believe that the media is complicit in this, at least a little. When you spend years telling your audience that the president is akin to one of the most evil figures to ever walk the planet, should you be surprised when someone acts on that belief? If you were convinced that someone was truly another Hitler, of course you'd feel justified in taking an extreme measure against them. But here's the reality. Trump is not Hitler. The comparisons are just absurd. And they're also dangerous, as we saw on Saturday. The shooter targeted Trump, but who got caught in the crossfire? A former fire chief who passed away, shielding his family from incoming bullets. It's not just about Trump. It's about you. It's about me. It's about everyone else who believes in a better America, the America we all grew up in. And just think of the double standard here. You probably haven't heard much of Corey Compatore in the mainstream leftist news. And that's probably for a reason. They don't care. They don't care who they put in the crossfire, especially if you're a Trump supporter. And just imagine if a conservative commentator had spent years comparing a Democratic president to a genocidal dictator. The media would be in an uproar. But when it's Trump, the media not only tolerates, but amplifies these outrageous comparisons. The liberal media has spent years dehumanizing Trump and his supporters, portraying them as enemies of democracy and humanity. This relentless vilification has real world consequences, as we've seen with this recent assassination attempt. Yet, instead of reflecting on their role in creating this hostile environment, they choose to hide behind the guise of rolling breaking news coverage, conveniently sidestepping any responsibility. It's time to call out the hypocrisy. The media's double standard is not just about bias, it's about incitement. They have created a narrative where violence against Trump and his supporters is not only justified, but necessary. This is not journalism. This is propaganda. And now, when the chickens come home to roost, they pull their most incendiary show off the air to avoid facing the consequences of their own actions. We need to hold these media giants accountable. They have played a significant role in creating the current political climate. This is exactly why it's crucial to follow independent media outlets and commentators who provide honest takes and genuine reporting. Unlike the mainstream media, we aren't beholden to corporate interests or political agendas. So thank you for supporting this channel. Your support helps us continue to bring the truth, or at least what I think, to you guys on a day-to-day basis. But let me know what you guys think about all of this. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Drop me a comment down below. I'm looking forward to hearing from each and every one of you guys. Consider joining the ARP family. It supports me. It supports the team. It gives us the ability to produce this type of content on a day-to-day basis. God bless each and every person that has joined the ARP family thus far. Keep God first in your life. Stay prayed up. And I'm going to catch up with you all next time. Peace.